Yes, we are rolling.
Here in the beautiful studio.
The beautiful studio that you've been a big part of, Rob.
Congratulations on getting it complete. Yeah, it's been amazing to see the transformation. I get to, I'm here once a month, so you're here every day putting in the work, and I kind of come in and see all that's been done since the last time, and so finally this time it's complete. So it was
Yes.
great to hear that. Like when I got here, what was it, 5 days ago? It was nice to see it, and it's like come to fruition in all its glory. So
Thanks, man. I love that word, glory. Thanks, dude. Well, for the audience who doesn't know Rob, Rob and I, we've been friends now for well over 20 years. Blessed to have you in my life, buddy. And
likewise.
yeah, blessed to absolutely have you on the show because you have such an amazing, inspiring, transformational journey, and just by nature, man, like you're just an inspiring human to be around, dude.
Well, thank you. And I think that's probably why we click and why we've been friends for so long, because we share in that. And you and I, whether the camera's rolling or whether we're in the truck driving 7.5 hours, we always have really interesting conversations, and they're always kind of evolving. So yeah, and it's been great to have been your friend for so long, and to see yours as well.
We definitely see eye to eye on a lot, and one of the things that I'm really happy that I get to have you on the show today, Rob, is because you have a really, really amazing transformational journey that I've come to really appreciate over the last 20 years of being friends for yourself, and you've really embarked, I would say, over the last 5+ years on this really transformational journey into self-discovery through really studying the psychology, the success psychology of what really makes people really successful, which really helps people really can be consistent, to really tap into your truth in terms of being really real and honest with yourself with regards to what it is that you really want to do in life, which really means what you really want to do in life that's going to really, really make you happy. And so I'm really looking forward to diving in and hearing your philosophies of life that I always really appreciate hearing about, that helps people really with regards to being happy in life, right? With specifically what you want to do in life. Another reason too, Rob, why I'm really, really happy to have you on the show is that creatively, you've been really unfolding into a newfound talent related to like the natural ability that you have to be a creative person with regards to bringing what creative visions other people have, specifically myself, specifically the creative vision that I've had for the show, and really bringing it into reality. And this, the gloriousness of this studio I have to say thank you. You've been an immense part and an immense help to, helping me, create my own stage.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm grateful to have been a part of it. So thank you for asking me. And we both have that kind of. We were talking about being maybe too much of perfectionists last night, but I think it's a good thing because we both have that eye and attention to detail. And so it's like you need that when you want to create a product, something that is top notch like this is. So it's like,
thank you.
If something's off a little bit, like it's like, Rob, is that off? And I'm like, yeah, it's off. Like whereas some people don't see that stuff. So it's good to have, it's good to be working with you like that, because as somebody who works with creative people, sometimes they're not so creative. I have to be that person that's showing them and doing that sort of thing. And so to have you working with you, and that you're also like so in love with the creative and the visual aspect and all that stuff, that I have ideas to bounce off with you, because sometimes it's kind of like lonely when I have to be the creative force, and I'm like, well, what do you think? And they're like, it looks great. And I'm like, does it though? I feel like it's off, but you could be like, yeah, it's off. But they might, people who aren't into that creative or that design side of things, they don't have necessarily the eye for it. So it's been fun working with you, because we both kind of, we're coming from the same angle, kind of have the same eye for things.
And this, creative natural ability, call it like this gift from the universe or this gift from God that you have, it's been really something that like you've really unfolded into as part of like your transformational journey into really discovering what do you really, really want to do, every day. So there's something that's like, Kris Jenner says, she's like, find something you absolutely love doing and just figure out also how to monetize doing it at the same time too. And when you do, and one of the things I do as a career coach for people is I teach them, you really got to find and discover the work that you want to do that makes you the most happiest. And when you do the work that makes you the most happiest, that's when it's the most value to the external world. And eventually, through time, that value is going to be recognized, and just naturally the byproduct of that natural ability is the world's going to pay you for it. Yeah, so it's great that you've really unfolded into that, Rob. And one last thing, another exciting part about Rob for our audience that I wanted to share is that, Rob, you're pretty well now into getting your pilot's license.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. And it's been about 6 years, kind of thinking about it. I mean, it's like it's something that I've always dreamed about as a kid and stuff. And getting your full license is quite expensive. And at the time when I was looking at it, I'd spent my life savings on creating a company, and I didn't have $30,000 to $60,000 depending on how many ratings and type ratings you want to get and what license you want to get. So to me, it was like it was a really daunting thing. Like how am I going to do this? Like even just paying for a flight hour and pilot, and a small Cessna is $250 an hour, and you have to have quite a lot of them to get your pilot's license. So I was like, well, what can I do? And I was like, well, at the time I started working with video, and I was like, I'm going to look for an airport that needs video work done. And so lo and behold, 6 years later, I'm back kind of where I went and sat at the end of this runway at this airport in Burlington. And I was like, I like this place. It's got a good vibe. And when I was out riding my motorcycle, and I saw flight school, just an old sign, hand painted, like flight school, a quarter kilometer away. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go check it out. And I sat at the end of the runway. I was like, this place is cool. And 6 years later, like I'd moved around about 3 times, and finally the universe brought me back there. And like there was one day, early April, where I was just kind of at my wits' end with
That's
stuff.
like April of this year.
April
Yeah,
of
so we're
this year.
2023.
Yeah,
Got it.
2023. And
Yeah.
so the first time I think I was on the runway there, I have the photo on my phone. It's like 2017 or whatever. And April of this year, I had a deal fall through early in the week, and I had like things just weren't going my way. And it was really beautiful, like strangely warm weather for April. It was like
Nice.
30 degrees out, and it was Friday, and I was like, I really want to go to the airport. At least I'm gonna inquire about a discovery flight and ask them if they need any video work done. And I was like, I'll tell you the story because
Sure.
I've told you before, and I think the audience will like it, about the way the universe works out for you, and has your back. Is that when I was in the shower, and I was like, what if they say no? And I was like, I don't think I could take another rejection this week, like even though I'm pretty good at it from working in sales. But something inside me, I literally said out loud, I was like, just got out of the shower, I was drying off, and it was so sunny. And I was like, just show up, Rob, just show up. And at worst case scenario, they're going to say, well, we don't need any help. And I'll be like, okay, like, can I go for a flight?
Right, of course.
Anyways, jump on my bike, and I'm riding out there, and I see a Porsche pull up behind me, a gray Porsche, and I can see the custom license plate. So sometimes I think the universe has given me, like little.
You're very observant with those,
Yeah,
with those
yeah, I
things,
always-
whether it's numbers. The word we use when we're talking about it all the time is synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I try to pay attention because, it's like, well, maybe the universe has a little message for me. And I can't decipher what this plate says in my rearview mirror. So I let the Porsche go past me, and I pull in behind him, and I'm sounding it out. And it's JSTSHUP. Just show up.
Just
like,
show
just
up.
show up. JSTSHUP. And I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And that, my whole demeanor changed. I went from being like, oh, what if they say no, to being like, it didn't matter. It felt like, I'm like, this is perfect.
You don't get what you don't ask for in life.
Yeah.
In your career.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so I went there, and I asked the guy, and he's like, yeah. He's like, actually, I've been like saying we should do this for years. And I was like, no way. And so
I love that.
yeah, and so the rest kind of, it's going a little bit slower, but I went and did my discovery flight, videoed all that, documented it, made a like commercial for them, and I've been working with one of their managers there, and we've developed this great relationship, and it looks like they've got a pretty big flight school there, which I didn't know about. I knew that they had but they've got quite the operation going on there.
They do.
Yeah, and so
And they've been around for 20, 30 years.
40, I think.
40,
actually.
yes.
Yeah. So it's been around, and yeah, we're going to probably put me through the whole flight school plan, like get all my ratings and everything, and document the whole process, and it's just been amazing. And
That's amazing.
And it's a straight work swap, right? So
That's right.
I'm doing flight hours for video work, so it's
That's
like
great.
it's not going to cost me a dime, aside from maybe some things that I have to buy, like my headphones and whatever,
Yes.
but I don't have to pay.
We
for
got
the-
enough gear to facilitate the filming and all that stuff.
Exactly. So yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's great, Rob, that like hearing your story, the first thing that I really think about to come to appreciate is how life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And before you went and just showed up that one day to inquire about, hey, I have a really, really great skill. I can help you with a lot of videography work, help you film some commercials with regards to the value I get in return is, if you like it, let's do a work swap, right? And you really, really enjoy taking rides on your motorcycle. And the fact that like just the universe, you're like, I'm going to go drive down this road. I'm going to go check out this airport because, for years I've been hearing this calling where like, I really want to become, a master in the air, an aviator,
Yeah.
not a pilot. I want to be an
Yeah,
aviator.
yeah, I like that. That
Yeah.
sounds so much better.
It's
Right?
so in line with like Top Gun 2 right now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. My whole goal is to just fly fighter jets, but yeah.
And what I really like about it is, the universe brought you there, and it was only a couple years after where you're like, okay, it's like you have the the courage and the fortitude to go in and ask, right? You don't get in life what you don't ask for, and part of like what I've learned from Tony Robbins is that he's like 80% of life is just showing up. More often than not, life's an uphill walk. It's an uphill battle. And even on the hardest days, we just got to show up and ask and do what it is that we need to do, right? And the other rule that is a really great philosophy of life that I've learned from Tony Robbins that your story really reminds me of is that he was telling this one story about, he was talking to an audience and Al Gore was in the audience. And this was when Al Gore was post-election, where his election results against George Bush, they ended up having to go to the Supreme Court, where it was only 512 votes that dictated the result of the election, and Al Gore wanted to challenge it. And in the audience, Tony was talking to people about like limiting beliefs and all this really cool stuff. And then he got into the one topic of you need to be more resourceful with the resources you have. And in short, he called out Al Gore when Al Gore said, I wish I would have had more votes. And Tony was like, you know what, man? No. He's like, leading up to the election, you just weren't more resourceful with the resources you should have had. And the room was just silent. Like, we're talking, someone who just went up, to become president, and like for you to like call out in an audience with like billionaires, the most successful people in the world. Yeah. It was like one of those stories where Tony said, where everyone was like, wow. It was one of those stories that really resonated with me. And Rob, you've absolutely, one of the reasons why I love having you a part of, my team is that you always challenge me to be more resourceful with the resources that I have. And not just externally, but also like internally with like, digging deep, showing up, just putting in that a little extra effort.
Yeah, thanks.
And
that means a
you're
lot.
you're really, really great with that, Rob. And I say you're really, really great with that because look at the amazing results and like the new energy that like you've breathed into like this long-standing flight school, aviator school.
Yeah,
and you're just it's so great seeing you thrive forward in this process because I really I'm hoping that things elevate for us in this whole experience where I anticipate we have a lot of traveling coming up, not just in Canada or the US, but across the world. And hopefully we're going to be aviators together sometime soon because I really want to do. You've inspired me to like really embrace the importance and value of getting your pilot's license as well too.
Yeah, and so thank you for all of that, and likewise with you. It's like I think that's probably what makes us good friends is that sometimes I always believe that the universe shows up for us the way we need to, and not necessarily the way we think it should, but the way we need. And if we're really open to it and say, why is this happening for me? So, there's a lot of times where it's you push me in the same way or in different ways, right?
We're very good at challenging each other when those moments happen where like, you're kind of down in the dumps, and to take the outside the box look and find the win-win of what it is that is the gift that you're experiencing and that you get the privilege of going and growing through.
Yeah. And like you said about using the resources you have, like, so as I mentioned, it was 6 years ago that I, and it's like, if you keep thinking about like something and you're really passionate about it, you're going to figure out a way. And I'd called other airports. I'd looked out at like Belleville and Markham.
That's right. Yeah, it was a cross Southern Ontario endeavor for yourself that took a few years.
Yeah. And so, like using the resource that I had available at the time. And I thought, and that little like monkey mind voice in the back of your head is like, at the time I didn't have the greatest I had the skills, but I didn't have the greatest camera equipment,
It's looking for everything that's wrong, why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's that like survival instinct brain that like when we were cavemen, that's been hardwired into our genetic code.
Yeah.
To ensure that while we're hunting with our spear, we're not going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or Bigfoot if they had Bigfoots back then or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that monkey mind,
Yeah, and so it tries to convince you that you shouldn't do it, or there's somebody out there better that that can
Yeah.
do it. And I was like, oh, you know,
That
like
imposter syndrome.
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you know, like they seem like a pretty big operation. They probably like have somebody who's, you know, way better or has better camera gear and all this. And it was like, no, just keep going and just do what you can with what you have. And like what really got led the way was in 2017, Jeff, James, and I.
James, your brother.
Yeah, James is my
Yes.
brother, and Jeff's one of my best friends.
Yeah,
He
I've
was-
met Jeff too.
yeah,
Really
and,
great guy.
and he's really into photography. We all kind of got into it together at the same time, but Jeff really took the lead with it. And
He
like
did.
he went and he did a thing called Project 365, where he committed to a photo a day for 365 days. And then he ended up going after 365
That's an
days.
impressive commitment.
Yeah, and then he ended up going after 365. I think he ended up doing it for 5 years before he called it quits. He changed it to Project Infinity because he was just like, I don't know when I'm going to stop. But I
And
think
that comes with like, you know, when you really find something that's like aligns with like your truth,
Mm-hmm.
aligns with really what you know you want to be doing, that makes you happy, showing up is just so much easier.
yeah. And so that's what we did one weekend is like, well, I wanted to make a motorcycle documentary, but it was like, well, I don't have all the resources to make a documentary, but Jeff ended up getting a drone. And then so with James and I, you know, we did some storyboarding. I planned out like James and I had been doing location scouting, looking for epic, like when we go to Muskoka riding on our yearly adventure.
Yes,
it's like,
and I've participated in some of those when I was driving my Corvette. They were
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
fun, yeah.
So like it's like my goal is to go find the coolest windy roads that's fun to drive your bike on, and then so it's like, okay, let's sit down and kind of storyboard some ideas out and all this stuff. And then Jeff got the drone, and it's like whatever. Our budget is 2 cases of beer and a weekend in Muskoka, you know, a cheap motel, and we went out and did that, and we're like, let's just shoot some epic. Like, let's just shoot some footage. We'd never shot motorcycle videos before, so
Right.
like, you know, we
Got to
didn't-
start somewhere.
yeah, let's just see what we get, and maybe if you know, if we can piece something together, it's just a creative project and an endeavor that we can work on together, something to edit over the winter. And anyways, it ended up being a pretty epic little like 4-minute motorcycle video that we put because I wanted to put it to AWOL Nation sale, right? And whatever, it got taken down because of copyright issues, blah blah blah. 5 years, it took the steam out of the whole project.
Sure.
And then eventually, like two and a half years ago, I took a like online course with a bunch of people, and one of my friends says, like, I got a YouTube channel, and one of your friends said, just like upload it again and just try. And I was like, well, whatever, I'm gonna try, but I wasn't expecting much. And I came back after it uploaded, and it had the green check mark, and
Nice.
the record label said, because I guess I just had the type of my channel I have, like it's just a personal blog, like it's not considered
Monetizable type.
whatever, and if I do monetize it, they get the money for it or whatever, but I was allowed to use the song. And so then all of a sudden there's new life breathed into this project where it's like, I called Jeff, I'm like, Jeff, they're letting us use the song, like I got to finish this video and make
Yes.
it, like, because that's the whole point, was that I want to make a motorcycle video to this song.
Sure.
And so it just didn't, it lost the luster when I had to like find this other song that was like copyright free. It just looked like, I was like, this isn't.
When you really get, you know, in your imagination, like a vision, and it resonates with you so strongly that even though you don't know the how, you're going to take, you know, that first step towards doing it. But secondly, with taking that first step, you know, and embarking on that path towards working towards creating into reality or what you've visualized in your imagination, not letting go of it and just going after it. And that's really, really what I'm hearing that you experience with this.
Yeah, because it like,
And it was the foundation part of really you embarking into your creative nature and like letting it really flourish and really embarking on experiencing it being brought into, you know, or sorry, you really are experiencing, you know, the experience of unleashing his true potential.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly kind of what the whole point of that was just showing up, because you mentioned with the resource you had, like we used a cell phone, you know, like an iPhone, cell phone gimbal.
Yes.
I don't even think Jeff, like he had a good DSLR, but not anywhere near the ones you're rocking here today. So we had a cell phone,
Right.
a gimbal, a DSLR on one of the first drones. And we pieced that together, and you know, like we could have made excuses that, oh, like we need better this, that, but it was epic.
I
And-
know the feeling. We need better this. That.
yeah.
I can
But
relate
then,
a
but
bit.
then that's where, you know, we talked about to full circle back to where perfectionism comes in, is
Yeah.
that if you let, like, just do what you can with what you've got, and that's
Right.
going to lead the way. Like you can't, you know, James Cameron didn't get signed up to make Titanic his first film. Like you know
True.
what I mean? And so
That's so true.
It steps up the mountain. It's like when we climbed the mountain at 3 a.m.
Yeah, Mont Tremblant.
Unless you know, like a parachute or get helicopter to the top of the mountain. The only way you're getting there is step by step.
Step by step.
And so that was what happened, and that video opened a lot of doors because I was working at a shared office at the time, and these guys that had been working with the Canadian International Auto Show, we were talking because we shared office. I sat with them, and I actually sat kind of like in other groups of companies, even though the people I was working with had an office. I was like, I like sitting out in the main area, and so I became friends with everybody. And I told them, yeah, we're going to shoot a motorcycle video. They're like, yeah, I can't wait to see it. And then they saw it, and they're like, holy shit. Like, they're like, could you do that for a car? And I was like, with the right budget, like, yeah, I could do whatever you guys want me to. Like, I'll figure it out a way. And so then that year I did started working, doing some work with the auto shows, and I didn't really have the skills.
The auto show was a really new elevated experience for learning and development, because it was a pretty decent sized group. There was a few old friends that we had. Your brother was a part of it. I think Jeff was even a part of it as well too.
Well, I hired all those people because, to be honest, Jeff had way more skills in video than I did, and I'm good. Like, I knew at that time, okay, I have to be honest with myself. I'm not an expert videographer at this point, but I know how to manage projects. I know how to wrangle people together and create the team and keep So I said, I'm going to hire all these people to do it. And so, and I learned, totally elevated my skills, my ability to manage that project. And like, it was way bigger than I ever expected. There was one day where we had 8 people on site running around with video cameras, bringing stuff in, editing live, pumping out like social media clips. So it was stressful, but we made it through. And like, I would say the project was like 90, like obviously there's room for improvement, but it was like 90% success. Like, there was a few things that I wasn't.
It was a really good hit.
Yeah,
and you guys got paid very fairly for that too.
Oh yeah, well. Like I literally increased my income at that time, I think, like from $20 an hour, and then I was able to charge like over $100 an hour for videography.
Yes.
And so that was like the first time where it was like, wow, like I got paid more. Like, we did a double overtime one day because there's one day we had to work from 5 a.m. till 11 p.m. So, we charged like, the way I structured it, I said like, well, we're there for a long time. Like, and so I made more in one day than I used to make in a month.
Right.
Yes. And that was cool.
Yeah, very cool. It's very cool too, because, you started from a very little, knowledge base, and just through investing time in your own time, it's like, before 9 o'clock and after 5 o'clock, because like, you're working a full-time corporate job to pay the bills, you were able to basically increase, your knowledge, dial in your craft. And that, combined with doing really that work that makes you the most happiest, it's more effortless, it more flows. It's easier to, do that extra hour. And because you didn't give up, and because you kept investing time and putting yourself out there in the market, eventually the opportunity came up, because you've done so much work leading up to that, to validate, getting paid a far higher and much deserving more rate. And it's incredible, the story too, because like, so many people I've coached in social media and, in their careers and stuff like that, is this, when first things, get a little challenging, especially in the beginning, like for example, your beginning where you created this amazing, motorcycle, documentary, right? To this really great song, and all of a sudden this big blocker came in the universe where it's like, well, no, it's not the right time for it. But you never gave up, and that's, that never giving up is why you and me are sitting across from each other right now. Why, I invited you to, come in to, help me unfold into, my creative prowess with regards to videography, cinematography, photography, branding, and all that. And the one thing that your story really reminds me of, that parallels my story, is that 9 to 5, you got to do what pays the bills. And within that 9 to 5, you got to get really great at the 20% that makes the 80% in that 9 to 5. And one of the things for myself over the last few years, when I committed to being an entrepreneur, and I committed to the vision that, and what came into my imagination of what I wanted to, have as a brand, and to be as a presence in the world of the staffing recruiting industry, and in the world of corporate career elevation coaching, and to, have my own show, was that I'm like, okay, I want to do all these other things, and I have to invest relentlessly and extremely, as early as I can, to get up in the morning, usually like, 4:30 a.m. is more often than not when I'm sitting at my desk. And that's when I'm dialing in my craft and other things. And also after 5 o'clock, taking courses. Like, for example, last night we were learning about AI tools to help us better with video editing and stuff like that. Like that's been my experience now for like the last 3+ years, since I committed to, becoming like an entrepreneur. And because I never gave up, and there's been some really, really tough bumps along the way, it's been a very, very rewarding experience. I like talking a lot about Tony Robbins because Tony Robbins was like really the beginning of like my self-discovery journey of where, I discovered, the mindsets, the habits, the rituals, the philosophies of, how to really understand what's going on in your mind, reframe your stories, and go after really, truly what it is that's going to make you happy. And yeah, it's just been really, really, really cool that, we both have like these transformational journeys that,
Yeah.
are just now like lifelong journeys, right? Because when you really discover what it is that you really love to do, you don't even want to ever even exercise or entertain the word retirement.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. I'm like, retire to what? Like lay on the beach? Like, I have that balance where it's like, okay, I try to be content and live in the moment, but I'm always looking for the next thing. Like, and like Tony Robbins, you and I have conversations a lot about that too, because I read what is it? Awaken the Giant Within.
Yes.
I read that when I was working a corporate job for a mutual fund company, making decent cash right out of university, but not what I loved, not what I loved. I was doing it for the money.
Right.
And reading that book really kind of put me towards the path of working up the courage to say, I got to go from here. I got to leave here. And I quit and took like a micro retirement. I believe in micro retirements. If you're going to retire, take a year and just, like do the things that you always want to do that maybe you can't do because you got, like you're always at work or whatever it is. Like,
Sure.
so even if you're not an entrepreneur or self-employed, take a micro retirement when you're 30. And even Tim Ferriss talks about that. So, because I remember somebody saying, oh, like you sound like Tim Ferriss, and have you ever read his book? And I was like, no. And they got the book for me, and then I started reading it. And I was like, oh yeah, this is right up my alley. And he talks about a micro retirement because like, why work 35 years and then retire when you're 65? You're not going to enjoy it. Like,
No.
Take a micro retirement at 30, 40, and 50, and trust that the universe, you're going to be able to get back in the workforce and do the things you do, because like you're going to enjoy a year in your 30s, and be able to do things physically that you're not going to be able to do when you're 65.
Yes.
So like if you really do want to retire, work till you're 68 and take a year in your 30s, 40s, and 50s to do that, and work a few extra years if that concerns you so much. But the thing that Tony really, that from that book, I think that stands out to me the most was his can I thing. So constant and never-ending improvement.
Yes, constant and never-ending improvement. Yes,
Yeah.
that was a big one I've learned from him.
Yeah, and the where I put that to first. Sorry, what were you
Yeah,
gonna say?
sorry, and that's kind of brought me back to the last point that I totally forgot that I wanted to make, was that your fulfillment in life that I learned from Tony is that it's like really discovering the way your heart really connects with like giving back and making a difference, and serving is the word he likes to use. Serving is the word he likes to use in his teachings and stuff like that. And the other place in life where we get really, really great fulfillment is through contributing, there's contributing and then contributing, serving. And the other one is those little bits of personal growth that you accomplish every day. And sometimes like you make a really big leap forward, in your personal development on a, in one day. But like if you just invest in yourself and invest into learning what, each day, the things that like make you really happy. That's where a really big piece of fulfillment really does come from. And I've definitely taken a page out of his book, and that's what's really kept the wind in my sails to, learn all these things, all these new skills that when I started this, I didn't have any of them. And I'm like, even also in the beginning, he teaches like, don't get caught up in the how. Like you said, when we were climbing, Mount Tremblant at like 3 a.m. to go do some drone photography for sunrise.
Yeah.
You got to just take that one step forward and know and trust. Once you take that one step, you're just going to unfold into like discovering, okay, well, what's like my next blind spot, or what's like the next thing that I got to walk into and invest my time into learning.
Yeah.
So contributing and serving to others is where you get a lot of fulfillment in life, and again, especially personal growth. And the personal growth story for me was much like yourself, like when you were in university and stuff like that. Like Rob, like you're really, one of the reasons why like I really appreciate you as a friend is that like you're very, 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 very intelligent, and I've realized that if and when you discover something that makes you really, really happy, and you go 110% all in at, the results you get and how quickly you get them is absolutely incredible, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I remember with you with university was that like there were some courses that you didn't really like and the other courses you didn't, but like the whole thing was that it wasn't like really connected with like really what makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
And it was the thing that kind of parallels me with your story is that like, I did what 7.5, 8 years to get, to go through college, university, another like 2.5 to get, my CPA designation. And after that, my blind spot was I didn't invest into like self-discovery and self-development and really studying why successful people are, who they are.
Yeah.
And I went for years up until when I hit that Tony Robbins event, where there was this big gap where I really embraced this horrible philosophy. I'm like, I never want to pick up another book again. And that was like one of the things now looking back on my life that why I didn't get like increased fulfillment out of life, why I was depressed, why my career, flatlined, my relationships, my my fitness and
Yeah.
all those kind of things. And when, I went to that Tony Robbins event and then I discovered, holy geez, like the missing piece of the puzzle is like, doubling down and investing in yourself and reading and taking courses and all that is really how you start getting profoundly different results if like you, extremely, commit to it.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I've been able to do what I've been able to do, as an entrepreneur is because, I try to embrace this really great philosophy I just came up with one day where it's like, I no longer have time to spend. I only have time to invest. And when we invest in the things that makes us the most happiest, that's when we're going to really, really get some really exciting results out of life. That's when we're really going to, be able to really take what could be impossible in your life. And if you apply that passion, it is actually possible.
Yeah. No, I like that saying too. And you, what you said earlier really like resonates with me. And I don't know if it was for you, but I can kind of see some similarities. What makes you the happiest? I wasn't really necessarily raised to go after what you love to do, what speaks to your heart. It's like,
right.
Go to university, get a good job, like take commerce, like, and like you said, like,
yeah.
to me, like books,
there's this overarching blueprint of life.
Yeah.
I've really come to, be aware of.
And you know what? I think what made me good at school is that I didn't really like it. You know me, I'd rather be other places. I was always skipping class, but I learned to learn. And I was like, so many people create this like disconnect in their minds and this like barrier about, oh, it's hard, it's difficult, like calculus is hard. No, it's not. Just do, like, it's got formulas. It's giving you the solution, like the way to get to the answer. To me, that's hard. Like to me, school was easy. The tough part for me was getting through my family life, the separated family, losing friends and family. Like I was so much more interested in like, what the fuck are we actually doing here? Like, what does human existence mean?
What's our
like,
purpose?
What's our purpose in life? Like, to me, going to school and all that stuff, that was a joke. Like, and so and I didn't really want to be in university. I was doing it for my parents. And, like we were talking about things that I was really passionate. I was really passionate about learning how to DJ house music and how to produce house music. So that's what I was doing in my after hours. And I remember arguing with my stepdad one time about like what I was doing. And I was like, well, at the time I was like 20 years old or whatever. And I was sure you can't DJ all the time, but I was making $150 an hour DJing.
Yes.
Where it's like back then.
And you're happy doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Versus, sitting in some cubicle.
And what was minimum wage 20 years ago? $9 maybe?
Yeah.
Like $8?
It was like 12 or something.
I don't even know if it was that high like at that time. I remember. Yes. And so it was like, like, I'm making a killing like DJing. And so, it's not every night but it's like, that's what I love to do. And so following what you really love it's not the easiest thing, right?
It's
because
not
sometimes
the easiest thing.
It's going against what your mind says, what your family says, what they want you.
Going against like the typical blueprints of life.
Yeah.
Like forging your own path through originally like from the place that like where the idea of where you want to start forging your own path originates from, like in your heart, and hearing it, but then listening to it by taking action.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts of it where it's a very misunderstood, lonely path in existence. And the best way for me that I've realized like how to conquer that was learning from like, Steve Harvey, where he says, you have to have like unconditional faith that once like you get an idea in your imagination and like you're just so profoundly connected to it and you go after it like extremely relentlessly, you adjust your approach, you try to self-study and learn how to get to that approach, you will get to it, and that faith for me has been, the wind in my sails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like what you said, it's like you're going against the formula, right, or something. And it's like,
Sure.
and it takes a lot. And sometimes, like when I quit that corporate job and I took the 6 months off, I was working with a recruiter, and he wanted me to go work for CIBC mutual funds, and they offered me a job for 120 grand base salary plus
And
commissions.
that was like when you were early 30s or late 20s, which is big money.
Yeah,
back
and
then.
they were, well, so 120 grand base, and the commissions was really. He's like the guy. He's like, you'll make anywhere from 250 to like 300 plus K a year based on, he's like the last guy made like over $1 million in 4 years, and I went for a couple of interviews, and
I remember you telling me about that experience. It was one where it's like you were very, very torn, right? Because
yeah,
you just
well,
like,
I wanted, like, to me that, like, like, yeah, I think I was 27 to be able to make 250, 300K a year. That's like,
that was really what we were all striving for in our early 20s, was like
Yeah.
just this number.
Yeah.
But like the purpose behind why we're going after that number was like this really, really big disconnect. And I believe there's a lot of people out there that, we all fall into, that trap,
yeah.
right?
Well, it's true.
When we're in our younger years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's it. We see it on TV. We see, lifestyles of the rich and famous, like, and we think that money is the solution to all our problems, and it's not.
It makes making solutions easier, but I assure you, I've made the mistake where I've gone after the money first many times in my career. And I believe that's a part of why my career as an accountant didn't turn out the way it did.
Yeah,
And you gotta, like I was saying, like we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, was you gotta really, really get connected first. Is like what really makes you happy, and then going after that first. And naturally, from when you're feeling more happy, when you're in a better state, you're gonna produce far better value, far better results. You're gonna have far more longevity. You're gonna burn out less.
yeah. Well,
And naturally, from that place, consistently being operated in, is when you produce more value in the world, and that's when the world, in turn, gives you more value back, right?
Yeah.
Monetarily. But it's a process.
It is, and like you
It
said,
is a process.
Burnout is that's what I realized. I was burnt out, and the reason I took that time off is like because I had a lot of money but not a lot of time, and I wasn't happy. And I looked like I was, that second time I went to that interview, I was, like the kid in me, part of me, growing up in a small town Ontario, it was cool. I was up in this skyscraper looking out over Toronto, and I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah, I remember like my first times in Toronto too, coming from like that little town that we went to go.
Yeah, Gabriel.
Yeah, to go film some of our docuseries work in. And when I got to come to Toronto, it really opened my eyes to like how big the world really is, and how big the opportunity out there in the world really, really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big source of my inspiration when I was younger.
Yeah, and so that I sat there and I was like looking out the window after the interview. I just stayed in the office for a bit, and I was like, a part of me, it's like I had like two paths, kind of like you mentioned before, and I was like,
Those forks in the road, right?
Yeah,
Where it's
yeah.
like once you go down one, it's like you're never coming back down the other one.
but I had to look at myself seriously. I was eating 3 meals a day out. I had huge commute on my plate every day. I was gone for, even if I worked an 8-hour shift, I had an like minimum hour and 20, that was on a good day. If my commute went perfect and I caught the subway and the trains and everything at the right time,
Yes.
it was an hour and a half each way. So I was like, I didn't have any of my own personal time, and I saw it, and it's like, I saw the two ways. I'm like, I'm just gonna like, I don't want to be that guy. Like I weighed 250 pounds, and like I just wasn't happy. And
Right.
and it's like, what? Like this salary and this money, this all sounds great, but I have to just go. I don't know what the outcome of the other road is. It's like the road less traveled. I don't know. Like I see this road, and what I see at the end of this road, I don't like.
Right.
I don't know what's down this path.
It takes
and it looks
fortitude
scary.
and courage to say no,
Yeah.
to potentially a life that could be easier.
Yeah.
Right,
There was
'cause,
no
like-
light at the end of this tunnel, but I said, I'm going to go, and I'm going to trust that I can walk through the darkness.
Yes.
and figure it out.
I like that. You can and you will be able to walk through the darkness. Yeah. As like an entrepreneur, I'm sure you can relate. You have to make sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
And I would imagine majority of entrepreneurs that ultimately end up being, highly successful, you got to start from like ground zero. You got to start with nothing. When I started and I embarked on like my entrepreneurial journey, it was just with like a laptop, a cell phone, to at best average, little desktop screens, from Costco. and just a relentless commitment to like, grow and move forward,
Yeah.
and to get to that point though, I had to say so long to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I had to say so long to, working in the corporate world. Um, and also too, like we were talking about, when I was a young kid coming to Toronto and seeing how massive the city was and it being a big source of inspiration where I want to experience an inspiring life.
Mm-hmm.
Once like, I got that feeling where I'm like, I want to lead and live an inspiring life, but I don't know what that's going to look like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know how I'm going to do it. To still remain committed to that in like your darkest hours where like you're given these forks in the road and these paths where it's like, yeah, you can look all the way down that one path and you know that it's going to be an easier life. It's going to be one that's going to be more comfortable, but the experience of it is not going to be one that really aligns with your truth. The experience is not going to be one that really, really makes you happy. And that's where like those taking the right way, like the going right instead of left on those forks in the road is, I look at it, it's like when we take and go right, it's always the harder way.
Mm-hmm.
But taking the harder way is only because it's just more in line with what makes you happy, what aligns with like you and your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it always ends up being the right one
Yeah.
when like you just extremely commit to it.
Yeah.
And the rewardingness and like the fulfillment you get when you're growing through, that process. And then every once in a while, you hit a milestone and you hope you don't get caught up into when you hit that milestone, well, now what's next kind of thing. Like that's also why I don't embrace any philosophy related to the word retirement, because there's always something in your life experience and like your life passion that you can grow towards next,
Yeah.
So sacrifice comes with really great challenge, but really, really great fulfillment at the same time too.
Yeah.
And it's it's definitely a lonely path. You kind of got to be a lone wolf. You're going to be misunderstood, but your life is really only one that should be really understood and appreciated by yourself first, right?
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and that's what, like, you made a good point, and I realized that doing all that stuff, like, like we grew up, we had a lot of friends, and I
We
was,
had we had a really great social circle growing up.
yeah,
That's why I think we established at such a young age such a really great brotherhood.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was great at the time, but then recently in the past few years, I've really whittled that down, and I think when I was young, I was kind of scared of being alone, maybe because having a separated family and this and that, and I almost had
Yep.
this fear of being alone, and now I really embrace my alone time. Like I
That's
go,
so yes, the
yeah,
alone time.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I go ride my motorcycle for like I'll go hours or day trips by myself, I and I think that was really a connection with like the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, all that is,
Mm-hmm.
however you define it. But it's like wow, like I never really, and like there's maybe sometimes when you get like you might feel alone, but it's like that I don't feel alone. I feel like everything, like I'm a part of everything, like the universe, like to me it's the great unknown, that great mystery of going to like some place, like I'll pick a destination that I've never been to and I'll ride out there and I'll meet people on the side of the road. I'll talk to a farmer for an hour or
Sure.
just like just people at the restaurants or whatever, and to me that is, it just feels like yeah, like I'm by myself but I'm never alone.
That's that gift of like, when you're actually alone, you know, uh, that's like that gift from the universe, of time, right? You get to choose, how you spend it or how you, invest it. For me, when I moved here to Tremblant and I moved out of the city and I left, some really great social circles behind, I moved here into, when I started just like into a very humble, basement apartment that had a nice little view of the valley, which was, close to the awesome ski hill that we have, now just like 5 minutes away from, the global corporate headquarters. I really came to appreciate, the peace and ease and of having the choice of, okay, it's like I don't have any external distractions. I don't, have any like these obligations where I have to like, go out and socialize and stuff like that. I can just like double down and invest, myself. And part of like that alone time is you have more ease in which you can establish better habits and daily rituals and stuff like that. And one of the ones was, meditation for me that I like to practice daily, just especially before like, I I come and downstairs and start my day. It's like I just like really foundationalizing an amazing energy, frequency, vibration that you go forward into the day with, because if and when something that's going to challenge you, at least when you're foundationalized in a really awesome gratitude related, appreciative related frequency or vibration, it's so much easier to conquer the day's challenges. And one of the revelations that I got from like one of my meditations one day when I embarked and went into my day, and maybe I came back from skiing, I was walking into my little humble apartment. I was alone, but it was like just either God or the universe said to me, he's like, all the love you need is the love that you have for yourself and the love that God has for you. And from that place, you can really embrace like a profound certainty and confidence in yourself. And when you have those alone times, and if you really take advantage of them, investing in yourself, that's when like you become a really profoundly different person. And from being that different person, you produce different results in life, and then you start attracting really new incredible people and experiences in your life. And for me, that it's been a really amazing journey. This is why I believe we're here right now, getting to have the privilege to get to do a fun show and fun conversation like this. And it was something that when I was living in Toronto, I didn't get to have like much of that like alone time, right? And so for those people that I would imagine like have families or girlfriends or whatever it is, you can still challenge yourself to find that alone time. It reminds me of this one quote that Arnold Schwarzenegger says. He's like, for people who say they don't have enough time to work out, he's like, well, just sleep quicker and make more time for yourself. And I assure you, like, there's been times where it's like I've gone months where it's like I'm operating on 5 or 6 hours of sleep, but that's a choice. It's like, and the more we commit to like getting the most out of every day, I found, the days where it's like, I'm operating, I'm dialed in at like 4:30 a.m. and like I'm going to bed like at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I've felt like I've lived like 2 weeks of time in 1 week, right? And that was for me when like everyone says like, oh, life goes by so fast. No, it doesn't if you get up really early, and it's like you're doubling your wake time every week.
It does when you're not present in the moment, because
that is very true.
It will feel like that. I mean, it will feel that it goes by fast, when you look back on your life, because in a way it does. But for me, I felt like that because I wasn't always living in the moment. We're either worrying about the past or, over anxious about the future, and
what people think.
And it's like to be present in the moment. I've been working on that. And you talked about morning rituals and like meditation. For me, it was starting the Wim Hof breathing method, and I've been doing that for 5 years now. And the other day before I got out of bed here, it was 5:55 a.m. and I usually start I probably started the deep breathing half hour before that. But I held my breath for 4 minutes and 44 seconds. And I was like, that
breath work is so amazing, that I've learned from Wim Hof, where it really allows you to help be present in the moment, right? There's so much like going on in our head. Like we have like that auto programming in our mind that really prevents us or keeps us, if you don't really train yourself to become super hyper aware of that programming, how it prevents you from being really present in the moment. And so, for our audience, who maybe people are like, who's Wim Hof? Is that even a human?
Right? So, WIMHOF.
Yes. So I had the privilege of seeing Wim Hof speak at a Tony Robbins event way back in the day. And what a presence on the stage. Like and then from seeing him and him teaching, the benefits of cold therapy on the body, and like how it's just resulted in so much more like higher performance, like in all aspects of your life. And like he explains how the body's capability to like overcome cold is just so it's so underestimated, where Wim Hof's nickname is called the Iceman, where he's scaled not just to base camp, but I want to say to like a very high summit of Mount Everest. I think he swam underwater, like frozen ice lake water.
Like 100 meters or something.
Something like 100 meters on one breath, right?
Yeah.
And so the combination of breath work over the body combined with cold immersion is a really great way to start your day. So like another really great morning ritual that I have is, you start with like just like a nice natural like warm shower and everything, but like you finish it off with the cold, and as cold as it gets. So anyone who like lives in like northern Ontario, northern Quebec, or the northern states of the U.S., certain times of the year, the water coming out of your shower is just as effective as doing a cold plunge.
Yeah.
And it's incredible where you manage your breath, you breathe in, and then you start the cold, but like you don't try to like hyperventilate or anything. It's like the first thing was when the cold hits you, you got to manage and control your breath, right? And that ability just to really inhale and exhale slowly while you're doing that cold immersion, that's like just like an amazing meditative state where it's when cold hits you, you are just nowhere but present in the moment. And there's actually a really amazing spa here too, where they have like really cold plunges and all that stuff.
Nice.
And I can do easily or comfortably before like you start getting the shiver. I would say about 4.5 minutes,
Nice.
5 minutes, where it's just like you're really just managing your breathing and stuff like that. And it's really good where it's called brown fat. And apparently it taps into the burning of brown fat through your liver and whatnot. But it really results in a better metabolism to actually result in burning fat off your body. And also too, there's a really great benefit I learned through cold immersion where you do 5 minutes you do say 20 minutes, 15 minutes in a sauna.
Yeah.
Like that's what's raging hot. And then you try to do 5 minutes right after that in cold plunge.
Yeah.
And then you repeat that process 3 times. And apparently it's something I've been trying to do almost every week, and I've been pretty great with it, where it spikes your human growth hormone level.
Oh, nice.
And human growth hormone, my basic understanding of it is it's one of like the fountains of youth out there. Not like not a fountain of eternity, but a fountain of youth, and to be able to help keep like the body fat off you, and just helps with skin and all that kind of cool stuff. But breathing and being present in the moment, man. That's one thing that you had your one of your best records was just the other day, was like you achieved 4 minutes 30 seconds on one breath. That's like deep sea diving.
Well, and you saw how excited I was.
Yeah.
When I came upstairs, I'm like, check this out. And so like when you start the day excited about something, and hyper oxygenates your blood too.
Yes.
So it helped me quit smoking. Like I'm pretty sure it saved my life, because I was going in 2019. I had a falling out with some business partners. The couple of contracts that I was working on got, the company I was working for, they lost those contracts. So by extension, I did.
Yes.
All this stuff. My stepdad was passing away from cancer. We were forced to move because our landlord. I was trying to
the perfect
juggle.
storm.
Yeah, I was trying to juggle like 20 different things, and I thought I was having a heart attack or a stroke. Like I couldn't handle life anymore. I think maybe it ended up being a panic attack, but I'd never experienced whatever it was. Like my whole body, it felt like my blood boiled instantly. Right. And I went in the bathroom and I looked, my eyes were bloodshot. My face was totally red and my heart was thumping, like my blood pressure. I thought I was having a stroke. I grabbed the phone, dialed 911, and something inside me was like, go breathe. And like, if you can't regulate this through the breath, just hit dial and 911 will come save you or whatever. And
sure.
And I was like, honest, to be like transparent, I was doing my deep breathing and I was like, trying not to cry / deep breathe / figure out what was going on with my life and what was happening to me in that moment. Was I having a heart attack or a stroke? And I just did the deep breathing and I did it for an hour straight. And after that, I felt like, I was like, okay, like I got this.
Right.
But so that, like, I'm pretty sure it might've saved my life that time.
Sure.
But since then, I quit smoking over two years ago now.
Well done.
And so like, it's just like and it's just a natural thing, because it's like, well, I know that like, I'm not gonna be able to beat my records of holding my breath, because the first time I did it, I couldn't even hold my breath for 30 seconds. And then I just did 4 minutes and 44. And
Right.
I'm like, my next one's 5 minutes,
I heard from I believe I was at like a Tony Robbins event, and it was either like Unleash the Power Within or Date with Destiny. And it's usually like day 3 or 4 of these events where they invest a lot of time into shifting gears and teaching the audience. Okay, it's like we've taught you a lot about psychology and success habits and all that kind of stuff, but foundationally, like your body is like the vehicle in which you and how you operate, in this world, and like you really, got a lot of blind spots on like how you don't take care of it results in like how you're not really taking care to achieve the best results in your life. And one of the ones that they really, really dove in again was they were talking about like, breath work and stuff like that through yoga and stretching and stuff like that. And they were talking a lot about how just like shallow breathing when in a stressed state can really induce that stress response in your body that can result in a reduced immune system, right?
Yeah.
And so that ability, it's like for anyone, that's working in the corporate world or, working on site with, hard hats and boots on, like there's times where it's like, yeah, it's like you're freaking stressed. And it's incredible where I learned this one rule, I believe it was from Mel Robbins, where it's whether you count backwards from 5 to 1 or from 10 to 1, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that when you're counting backwards, you can't in your brain think about anything else in, like in your subconscious, where you can only focus on the counting backwards.
Yeah.
But if you're counting forwards, you can your subconscious can still be processing whatever junk it's processing.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
That counting backwards combined with the deep breathing is a really, really great way to just bring yourself back into like the present moment, right?
Yeah, center yourself.
Center yourself.
You made a good point about the shallowness of your breathing, and so that's what I've been working on the past while, is that like, okay, doing Wim Hof in the morning is great, but what about the rest of the day? And then that's when I started realizing, like, like I said, I smoked for 24 years, like pack a day, and and I was not.
It's
healthy.
amazing, Rob. Like, and kudos to yourself, man. Like, quitting is not an easy thing. Like,
Yeah,
2.5 years is remarkable.
Yeah,
it's very, very good.
Yeah, and over that 2.5 years, I started really like focusing on, okay, I want to be consciously aware of my breath all the time. Like, it's great that
I like that.
Yeah, like, because it's great that I'm doing Wim Hof in the morning and starting the day with a bang, like, and then doing the cold showers. I was actually doing the cold showers, and probably maybe from a recommendation from one of Tony's books for years before I even knew about Wim Hof. I would always do the hot shower, cold rinse. And
yeah, because Tony's a big, like, he starts his day. He talks about when he's on stage where the first thing he gets up in the morning or whatever. Like, he's obviously has a very, robust financial presence. Wherever he's living in the world, where more often than not he's got like his cold plunge tank, and the first thing he does when he gets out of bed, he goes and he dives in.
Yeah.
That's like his first thing he does.
Yeah. And
very massive benefits to doing that.
Yeah, and so that was all good, but then it's like, well, I want to be consciously aware of my breathing all the time. So now I'm really focusing, and like you said, shallow breathing. If you're consciously aware and say like, whoa, like I just noticed, I'm like, so many times I'm either breathing really shallowly or holding my breath altogether. Like, that's what a lot of people, you don't realize, if something's stressing you out or you're listening to somebody that's annoying you or your boss is yelling at you, you're probably not breathing at all. You're
that
sitting there
is
and
so
you're
true.
like, fuck this guy, like, fuck, and you're not breathing.
Yes.
And so just to be like, okay, so like I went from doing the Wim Hof in the morning, so now I'm focusing on balanced breathing all day. And it's like, give as much time. And they have like things called square breathing, where it's like, you say that's a good thing to do if people want to practice, something that's simple. You don't need to go do this whole Wim Hof thing. It's just like, breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5, and hold the out breath for 5.
Right.
And then breathe in. And so
and
it's
incorporating a pause too.
Yeah,
in there
yeah.
before,
So
like
it's square.
from your
So
exhale
in,
to inhale.
hold, out, hold.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's But that and so now I'm really focusing.
That's something that's really helped me, because like I have to have some really tough conversations, in my day, whether it's with clients or candidates that I'm coaching.
Yeah, and so it's just these little things, right? These little things
helps.
that nobody taught us, that, hey, your breathing is crap.
That's
Okay,
and that's I'm glad you just said that, Rob. And this is something that when I explained to you, the vision for the show, that I wanted to do, was that going back to like when I finished my CPA and I wrote my last exam or whatever it is, and I basically was home and it was a weekend. I'm like, there is no way I'm ever picking up another book again. Like, I was just so jaded by the education process, the formal education process. Looking back at it now, and then looking back specifically to when my path towards transformation began, and in self-discovery and self-education and self-study of successful people, was how, like, I've done a lot of school, man. Like, in high school, I graduated with like a 56 or 57 average. I was blessed that I even got into college. And then from that point, I taught myself how to do homework and study and learn and pass tests, and did pretty great. But throughout that whole process, and I was very, very, very dedicated to my studies. I was actually pride myself of being a teacher's pet. But
well, I admired your dedication to studying, because like I was like, Chris always goes home early. He's like really like committed to school and what he wants. And even though like maybe you didn't know that wasn't something that you wanted forever.
It was just a blueprint of life that was making sense of.
Yeah, but you were going for it.
I absolutely was going all for it.
I wasn't going for it. You know, like I was like skipping class. Like I
Yeah.
remember showing up. I'd skipped.
Dude, I had to invest like twice. I felt like I had to always invest twice the amount of hours to learn something than I did to like for my peers in the class.
Yeah.
But after reflecting now, as a result of going through some hard times and like my career as an accountant not working out,
Yeah.
was all the blind spots that really should have been at some point or another, whether it was high school, college, university, a very advanced CPA program. They never taught us like all the stuff that we really, really should know. That if you do know, these are like the pieces of life that really differentiate you from, you know, your peers, especially like in the corporate world. And that was why I really wanted to and felt really, really comfortable creating my own show, was to, you know, share the places of where I've learned that I didn't learn through the formal education process. Really wanted to create a show that creates a much opportunity to teach people all the things that like we weren't really and should have been taught in school.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, how to breathe, how to overcome trauma, how to
Sure.
be authentic, how to.
Limiting beliefs, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How to work.
Don't get caught up in the how.
Yeah.
Just move forward.
Using your emotions as tools and expressing them properly.
And the don't suppress them,
Yeah.
embrace them.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And like, you know, that's the thing. It's like I said, like I smoked cigarettes. I weighed 250 pounds. I drank too much.
You still look good though, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
But all those things, like I went through some dark ages, like drinking and doing drugs and smoking cigarettes, and
It was
but I was
because we
still
didn't-
successful
but it
on the
wa-
outside, but I was dying on the inside, man.
But you know what? It was because we didn't know what we now know today.
Yeah.
You know, and I just, you know, I have the privilege that I get to talk to so many people that work in the corporate world. Really, the people like that really, most of them that I do get to speak with frequency are the people who work at like the junior to mid-level range, and it's incredible like how a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the show is a blind spot for the majority. And it's incredible that now that I've had the privilege of working that in, you know, small, medium, and global sized companies as an accountant, and now I've gotten the privilege to serve clients that are small, medium, large size business, all the way up to like some of the world's most prominent publicly traded organizations. And I've gotten to look at the market of people where, okay, it's like I graduated in university in 2008 and another 10 people beside me did too. But only so few, if like you shape the market like a triangle, so few people get to like a CFO, VP, senior director, or whatever else. But I've always asked myself, like, what gets people to that upper echelon, and why do people, you know, just flatline and end up, and there's nothing wrong with this if you're happy with it, you know, being just titled as a manager the rest of your career, right? I would imagine anyone who goes in the corporate world, deep down, we all have some sort of heart-related aspiration to maybe achieving some sort of really great experience as like a leader of significance, you know, someone who's branded as an influential leader. I've found that my theory is that it gets people to like that top tier. It's what we're teaching on this show, what we're talking about. And these people, they've embarked on like the self-discovery process and investing and self-educating yourself on why are people that are, in your definition, you're so successful getting those results, and then diving in and studying those people, right? But what starts that process though is it's just like the universe chooses you. Because like when I was, you know, went to my first Tony Robbins event, I was just very lucky that I had a friend at work at the time. He's like, you got to go do this. And I had no idea who Tony Robbins was at the time, right? Because I was in that mindset where I'm like, I'm never picking up another book again. And there's so many people I find in the corporate world where they never get that opportunity where someone exposes them, or sorry, a better word is brings to light, hey man, you should really read this. Hey man, you should really, you know, watch this podcast. You should really go check out this person on social media and check out their reel. And it's those moments that like create that one opportunity of a switch in their brain where it's like, man, I really like that new brain food that I'm getting, that soul food that I'm getting. So many few people get that moment in life. And I think that's a real reason why there's so much lack of fulfillment in people's lives, not just with their corporate career, but in their relationships, their physiology, their spirituality.
Well, I think,
And
sorry to cut you off.
but just in short, like that's why I wanted to create the show, is I'm just hoping, maybe in 5 years or 10 years, maybe someone sees me walking down the street or sends me an email and just says, hey, that one thing that you randomly popped up on Facebook or on YouTube for me. And I saw just this one reel of like, you sharing 5 seconds, or a guest like yourself, Rob, like on the show, shares an insight of about life,
Yeah.
and really how to operate better in it. And that person says, man, that was like the start of like me diving down my self-discovery, my transformational journey.
Yeah.
And so I believe we're going to create that some way, somehow. And if it's just for one person, I get to hear it later in the future, how fulfilling that'll be. That's why I'm here.
Well, you've already done that for me. So
Well, thanks, dude. Yeah.
But one thing that I didn't mean to cut you off, but it was like something that you said that triggered me to think about. You said some people might not get that experience in their whole life. And I think that truly we all do.
Okay.
But it's whether or not we're listening and willing to show up.
Hate that.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
we're not.
Wow.
Because then if we say that, then it's like, then we're creating this duality or this separation that some people are gifted this thing. It's like, no,
I just believe some people are gifted a break in life.
Sure they are. But everybody, I think everybody's, in my opinion, equal in spirit. So your spirit's talking. Are you listening? Are you willing to go against what your mind's telling you?
Yes.
And to take it's like just showing up, or jumping in with both feet, saying fuck everything else. I'm going this way.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to burn the bridges. So like there's nothing wrong with burning a bridge.
That's right. Like you said, it's like it's really. There was Jihan Alawi, who I had on the show recently. We haven't released the episode yet, or have you? But regardless, we were really talking. We dove into the subject of, there's hearing and then there's listening.
Yeah, that's an example of that.
You're right. Hearing is like, okay, it's like you hear what's kind of going on in your mind, you hear what's going on in your heart, but like you're just stuck on autopilot and you're not acting and operating on it. The next level of, when it comes to what your heart and universe or God's speaking to you, it's listening to it. First you hear,
exactly.
You become self-aware of it, and listening to what your heart's saying is like, okay, I'm going to take immediately extreme action towards doing what my heart's actually telling me to do, right? And actually, you are right with the fact that the universe absolutely has to gift every single human, that opportunity of, hey, here's here's a new light, here's a new path, here's a hint of it. You're going to hear it. Your curiosity is your choice.
Exactly.
Your curiosity and diving into that curiosity, it's up to you to listen to it.
Exactly. And so that's another thing that you said earlier too, and we can use that as an example. As you said, my accounting career didn't work out. Well, I ask you this, did it not work out, or did you choose to pursue a different path?
No, that's really great. If I was going to say, did it not work out? I believe that it happened for a purpose, right?
But you still had to make the choice to say, I can't do this anymore. Or I
That-
don't
well,
want
okay.
to do this, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so if
you
you want-
chose. It's not like,
Yes.
you got fired and it didn't work out and you couldn't find a job. It was like, no, you made
I like to say I got paid to leave.
Here's some money, fuck off now. But it didn't work out in a way, but it's like, I was saying somebody like, oh, they're like, you lost a lot of weight. And I was like, I didn't lose it. Like, it's not like I forgot it, down at the fucking, I didn't lose it. I worked it off. Like,
Sure.
so it's the language that we use is very important.
It is so true. The language that we use is so critical, and its effect on the subconscious mind. I remember I have, and hopefully he gets to see the show one day. I think he's still around. His teacher, his name was Mr. McDonald, and he was my music teacher, but he was also a grade 6 and grade 8 teacher for me too, but he also taught music. He even had the privilege of teaching it early in high school, Shania Twain.
Nice.
So he came from Northern
Was he in
Ontario.
Timmins then?
Yeah, I want to say it was obviously somewhere in Northern Ontario where he had the privilege of teaching her. But she was just a normal high school girl at the time and stuff like that, embarking in music and stuff. And he taught me, and he used to really come down hard at anyone in the class that ever would say, especially when like you're trying to learn or do a test and play a song on the instrument that you're learning at the time. And he would just say, don't ever say you can't.
It's true.
And it's so true. That energy and that presence, that when he said that, always stuck with me. And looking back now and how I really have developed a really great mastery of understanding the conversations that we're having in our head and being really hyper aware of them, that for me even when I'm like going through the thick of the day, I'll still say, oh man, I'm blessed. Man,
Yeah.
I'm having a
Yeah.
great day. You know,
Yeah.
it really, really, it's really important. It's
Yeah.
such a basic principle of life of like just, you know, even when like you're, you know, you look in the mirror in the morning, like one a really cool ritual was, or habit that you should have. I believe it was Mel Robbins who taught me this. Was she was talking to Reel one day, and I saw either on like Instagram or Facebook, and she was like, when you get up in the morning, when was the last time like you actually looked at yourself in the mirror after brushing your teeth and just took a big breath, just said, "I love you,"
Yeah.
and like you're looking at your eyes, you
Yeah.
know, and try it one time, you know, for anyone who's watching this, you'll get like just like this electricity that flows through your body, you know. But from those exercises, take it another level and say, you know, I deserve to have a great day.
I never said
I'm
that
gonna
to
have a great day.
myself.
Yeah.
Ever.
Wow.
About 10 years ago, I remember the day I was like, I was sitting in my room and I had this mirror that I hadn't put up on the wall in this new house yet. And so I was doing like maybe yoga or something, and I was unhappy. And I don't think I ever said I love myself to me.
It
Like,
wasn't until a few years ago too. Probably not too long ago actually. When I
For
just
you?
yeah,
Yeah.
for me, where it's like I just gave myself permission to have so much forgiveness for, you know, my past and how they didn't go according to the blueprint that I was really hoping.
Yeah.
But to say, yeah, man, I love myself.
Yeah, I love you, man. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
love,
like it's like I
yeah,
love
say
you.
it. Like,
And like
I said,
gift
I was
yourself. You
crying,
deserve,
man.
yeah.
Like, I touched the mirror, and I was like,
Yeah.
I was like tearing up because I was going through a bunch, and I
Yeah,
don't know, I don't
wow.
think anybody, but I realized that like I say I love you to a lot of people in
Yeah,
my
man.
life, but I'd never said it to myself, and at least not like. Yeah, that was the first time I remember it. And I was
Yeah.
like, I see you, man. Like I was looking in the mirror and I was like, I see
Yeah.
you. Like I love you, man. And I was
Yeah.
like to myself, like, you know,
Yeah.
and we did, that was probably one of the beginnings of like, you know, like we talk about transformation. Transformation it happens in stages. It's
It
not
sure
like you wake
does.
up one morning and all of a sudden you're 300 pounds lighter and you got a Porsche in the driveway and all, like, it doesn't happen
I prefer
like that.
Corvettes.
Yeah,
but
yeah. We'll have to race them and find out. But yeah, so transformation, it's like Tony, back full circle to how we kind of started at the beginning, is constant and never-ending improvement.
Yeah,
So,
man.
and
It's such a gift.
yeah,
for
and I think
yourself.
that's why it's important, you know, when I do my show or on your show, is having that authenticity to say, like, you know, like a lot of what was in the past was shown that people have this like lifestyles of the rich and famous. They didn't show, like, even for that's
They
mean
just show the
success.
end result.
Why is that success though? Why isn't peace success? Like we were fed this false reality of what success is. It
Yes.
was always put on monetarily perspective. Like if you have a yacht with a whole bunch of ladies and a bunch of booze flowing and like,
Yeah, and what we see on TV and like the portrayed definition of success, and that's why like when I use the word success, I'm always following it up with, but success in terms of what your definition is of success, right?
yeah,
Because if I told people what my definition of success, people would say, "Man, you're freaking crazy,"
yeah.
right?
My definition of success is peace.
I love that.
If I'm not at
It's
peace
so
in the
important.
process, like we talked about being,
Yes.
you know, enjoying the process, peace in the process. That's why being here with you,
Yeah.
working at stuff on the airport, because I spent a lot of my life, I always tell people, go do, if you're working at a job and you're thinking about doing something else, then say, you know, listen, I got to go and do that something else. I don't think about what else should I be doing now because I'm doing what I love,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm not like sitting at the office being like, man, I really wish I could be, you know, getting my pilot's license or like working on videography with my successful buddy who's building a company, because I'm doing that, you know. It's
Right.
like, and that's what, like, I spent so much time when I was working the corporate job daydreaming about riding motorcycles or doing something where I had a little bit more time and freedom.
Daydreamed a lot in the corporate world too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
go
that
do what you're daydreaming about.
Yeah,
That's
well,
my message
yeah.
to everybody.
And that kind of takes, well, not kind of, that takes me into like one thing I want to share.
Yeah.
My story of that I try to really help, you know, career coach people on, and it's a big piece of what results or doesn't result in like career elevation, like corporate career elevation. Was, you know, for anyone who's like, you know, working in like those 9-to-5 jobs, working in the corporate world and stuff like that, when you're when you're doing your 9-to-5, like be there, be present in the moment, make the best out of it, you know, regardless of whatever it is that you're experiencing, because that's definitely first, you know, at the start of a really good path forward, right? Again, like Tony Robbins says, be more resourceful with the resources you have, right? Stick it out a little bit longer, whatever it is that you got to do, you know? The second thing is that if and when you're at work and like you're feeling torn, you're working in the corporate world, you're working in that cubicle, coffee sucks, you know, your boss you just don't relate to, whatever it is. your 9 to 5 is not where you get your fulfillment. You know, if you're an employee, your fulfillment comes in to what you're doing before 9 o'clock and what you're doing after 5 o'clock. And when you listen to what your heart's saying, you know, and you start picking up those books, you start hitting the gym more, you start eating better, meditating, say a prayer, that's where you get happier, and like you start to look forward to, you know, getting up in the morning or after work. But when you finish your day or you start your day on that better note, you're going to be better at work, right? And the second thing is too, is that I got this philosophy that the week is won on the weekends. And we were talking about this yesterday over our awesome breakfast at one of those greasy spoon locations here.
Yeah.
What was it? Le Petit Spaghetti, I think that's what it's called here.
La Maison de
La
Spaghetti.
Maison de Spaghetti. Yes.
Spaghetti house.
Yeah, for anyone who's in Toronto, go see those people. They're really amazing.
Yeah.
It feels like, you know, mom or grandma's serving you. They're such
Yeah,
nice people.
yeah.
The food is just so good. But we were talking about, and you brought up this really great philosophy too about how, you know, don't call it a weekend anymore, because you're actually saying you're weakened.
Yeah, weekend.
Right?
Like if you listen subconsciously to the words,
Yeah.
they're powerful. Some people say that they're spells, like we're spelling. Like,
Sure.
So,
That's like the words we use affect our subconscious.
so yeah,
Yeah.
weekend sounds a lot like weakened. Like you're weakened, you're physically drained. You don't have any. So I kind of stopped saying that. Like
Yeah.
when you know, and I guess it's more with the intent, but it's, for some people, it's like, yeah, like you were saying, it's like, yeah, everybody's working for the weekend. Nobody's, and you're not living in the moment if you're thinking about the weekend.
You're sure not.
You know, and then you
Yeah.
get there and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna chill.
Yeah. What what has helped me, you know, get and keep momentum is what I do with my time and how I invest, and I try to spend as little as possible of it on the weekend. Is I'm always investing and doubling down on, you know, trying to learn that, you know, go through that new course of whatever it is that I know I need to take, that this online course is going to teach me to, you know, better launch my business and better help people, or better conquer whatever battles that are going on in the war of my mind and stuff like that. And what's really helped me as an entrepreneur, and this is something that applies to like anyone working in like the corporate world, is take your weekends and be more extreme with them and how and what you do with your time. Because when Sunday night rolls around and stuff like that, if you really feel that like you grew as a person, when you get up Monday morning, it's so much easier,
Yeah.
you know, and it's so much easier to go about conquering, you know, your week ahead.
Yeah.
So just for anyone who's watching this, if you want to take that one, the week is won on the weekend.
Yeah, and I agree with that in a certain aspect.
Especially if you
because-
want to get out of your corporate job too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
If
you
I
have to put in the
be your
extra.
solution, but I'm telling you, the weekend, the evenings, the early mornings, it's where winning gets done.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I told you, and I'll share with everybody like that. You have to be honest with yourself and go back and kind of like look at your childhood and look at some of the things you have. And I told you I hated Sunday nights because I didn't like school, so it meant the end of the weekend was, you know, like to me that was, I loved, you know. Anyways, I hated Sunday nights because it represented a lot of things for me. And having separated parents, a lot of the times, you know, if I was coming back from my dad's, it meant I had to leave my dad, and so I was kind of sad on those every second weekend. So
Sure.
Sunday night was just crap, and I came to that realization. So when I was, you know, when I first started being self-employed, and I was like, instead of, I'm gonna flip the script on this. Instead of like resenting Sunday nights, I'm gonna take them by the fucking neck and strangle them. But
Sure.
I would say like I don't want
Take
to
them and make something out of it.
yeah. So instead of like, you know, it's not Sunday night. It's just right now. How do I feel right now? And so when I was really loving what I would do, it's like, well, it doesn't matter, because I used to like, okay, I'm going to dedicate Sunday nights to chilling because I got to work tomorrow.
Sure.
No, it's like, you know what? I love what I do. I'm going to do it now. And I would work from after dinner. So say like 7 till, you know, 10 p.m. on
Sure.
Sunday nights.
Yeah.
And then that gave me, you know what? I started the week. I was like, I crushed out 3 hours last night. So like,
Right.
I'm going to not
That
even.
momentum
Yeah.
of result that you got through investing time, not spending it on the weekend, just gives you so much more better momentum to go forward into the week.
Yeah.
You know, when you, this is like really what I'm trying, another point of really what I'm trying to share, the importance of your time before 9 o'clock and after 5 o'clock, and especially on the weekends, is when you're, you know, whether it's just it could be something, it doesn't have to be something monumental that you're going after, but it just has to be something of improvement into like helping you become a better version of you. And a better version of you is not just what you deserve to give to yourself, but that's what the world deserves from you as well too. I think that's a big purpose in life, is that constant and never-ending improvement as being one of those big purposes of whys of life, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's like when you have like even that little thing that you want to go after, the importance and the significance of it to you makes it so much easier for you to be like, you know what, I'm going to stay in Friday night. I'm going to do what it is that's going to make me really feel good, to get up extra early on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Like getting up on like 4 a.m. on a Saturday morning and not going to bed like we used to when we were kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But getting up like that early, and all of a sudden it's like that, those early morning hours is actually when I've been investing time in doubling down and learning whatever it is that I know I need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible, those early morning hours, like your brain's on like this more easier wavelength state where you get these revelations,
Mm-hmm.
these ideas and these breakthroughs that like you're trying to figure out. And a lot of them have been related to like, you know, my branding for me, how I want things to work in my database,
Mm-hmm.
Hiring people, training, what I want to teach people, you know, and the early morning hours, like that's really where winning gets done too.
Yeah. And you know what? It's about being creative, playing, having fun.
Yeah,
'Cause it's
and
like,
you got to make time too to have some fun too. You got to be a normal human sometimes too, and
Yeah.
do that too. But when and if you're really doubling down on yourself for the times that you do actually, you know, like me as an entrepreneur, it's nice where it's like, you know, living here in Tremblant, you know, I'll get up at like 4 a.m. Not because I have to, because I want to, right? And then I'll work, you know, until about 8 o'clock, and then I'll, you know, drive 10 minutes to go to the base of the hill, and I'll go do 3 laps up and down the hill, and I'll come back down. But the more time you actually invest in helping and serve yourself, the more time you actually get to do really what it is that you want to do eventually. But I guess I kind of forgot where I was going with it. But when and if you do make time for yourself, when you're investing so much time in yourself, you'll appreciate it far more.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you get more out of the moment. You're easy to be more appreciative of it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think, you know what, we all grew up with like certain conditions and programs, and you know, like we're all subject to it, like especially here in North America. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, like sure, we have different programming than they do, different movies, different things, and that all adds up to it, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, there's people like listening on maybe a different part of the world that won't resonate with anything that we're saying, but if you grew up in Canada or North America, it's probably a similar, like, you know, we were talking about last night, like about how crazy commercials were when we were kids, about beer commercials.
Yes.
About
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so what was it called? Hockey Night in Canada.
Hockey Night in Canada. So
And
yeah,
like,
being in Northern Ontario, hockey was like a staple of, you know, your childhood
It's
and all
what
that
you
kind of
did in the
stuff.
winter, you
Whether you
know?
put skates on or not, it was part of it, especially on TV. Don Cherry when he was still around.
it's part of our conditioning, programming, culture,
Yeah.
whatever you want
Yes,
to call it. It's
absolutely.
part of that.
Absolutely.
And a big part of it was Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday, and every block of commercials, there was at least probably like, you know, every 10 minutes or whatever, they would go and it would be beer commercials. It would be like
Yes.
Molson Canadian, like
Budweiser.
drinking on
Yeah.
the like
The
parties
guitars banging around.
parties with girls, you know. And
Yes.
so like you're an
yeah.
8-year-old kid or like even younger, and just every weekend you're getting programmed with like drinking's awesome, you're gonna be
Yeah.
awesome, you're gonna get laid, you're gonna
Yeah.
have a wonderful life if you get
Yeah.
no wonder
You're going to
there's-
be on this big, you know, this big house in, you know, in the Ski Hill Mountains or whatever, with like the girls in the toques and all this stuff. And what a load of crap. You know, the guy who owns that house, that's the guy that didn't do those parties, doubled down and invested in himself, built something.
Yeah.
He's the one who's hosting the party, not the guys who are drinking freaking every weekend.
It's like I told you yesterday.
But the program behind all this stuff,
yeah, it's
and
crazy.
the conditioning of it, you know, again, is why there's just such this blind spot out there in the world, you know. And again, it's like why I wanted to, you know, have this show, is just to teach these points, you know, these points of awareness.
Yeah, and the transformation that can come through it, and
Through that.
through breaking away from the norm, or saying like, you know,
Yeah.
because we used to party a lot, and like,
Oh
and,
man,
and,
did
and,
we ever?
and so another thing that's I did when I stopped smoking is I stopped drinking too.
Yes.
And it's like
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on quitting drinking.
Me quitting drinking too was like one of the best things I ever did.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. I like mocktails though. Mocktails are really good because the studio my studio was inspired by this lounge in downtown Toronto.
Nice.
You know, I don't want to say names or any of that kind of stuff, but like, you know, to the owner, the visionary of style and stuff like that. And I wanted to have, you know, that nice kind of ambiance in this, you know, studio. And so even though like I don't like drinking anymore, like I just don't do it anymore, I still appreciate when I go out. I like mocktails. You know, it's
Yeah.
like it's they taste good, they look good, all that kind of stuff, you know?
All the same amount of love goes into them, just no alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And
Well, and to kind of like maybe like wrap it up, I think that is a big thing is that it comes with age, and I think, you know, to anybody out there watching this, don't think that it's like we've been through the trials and tribulations. I'm 40 now.
yeah,
This is stuff that, like, there was times, you know, 10 years ago where I thought, like, I thought my life's just shit and it's going to be shit forever, and I didn't, you know, I always saw everybody else out there in the outside world, and I didn't realize how much the outside world is a reflection of the internal world. And it's like,
Right.
you know, I ate crap. I didn't have a healthy diet. I smoked cigarettes. I drank too much. And it's like all that accumulates into like not being able to. And I remember saying to somebody one time, it's like, I want to feel like I do, like I want to feel all the time like I do after I've had a few drinks. I want to feel like I'm drunk all the time. Like
yeah.
not
Well,
like
just
a
be
mess.
like high on life, right?
Yeah, but like be confident, be not scared of
Yeah.
social situations,
Yes.
be grounded in who I am, and not be worried about what other people think, and not,
Absolutely.
and have that kind of nonchalant, not give a fuck attitude, not like be a drunk idiot, but I want to feel like that all the time. And that was the point, I think, why a lot of people drink, because I've discussed it with a lot of people. It's like,
Right.
you know, maybe they have social anxiety and they don't know how to handle big situations and crowds. You
And
know?
then going back to like, you know, the programming and the commercials that like, you know, we saw on TV when we were a kid, like, you know, they conditioned you to be, this is like the preferred, more proper social norm to do this. And really, I'm going to say it's not, you know, like some of the
I
words.
know more people that drink than people that don't.
Absolutely can agree with that too.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything, like, to each their own. You all make your own decisions. We all make our own bed and stuff like that. But for me, I just know, and that was like, this is one of the, for me, I know, and the philosophy that I'm about to say came from like after like a meditation, is that I'll never ever achieve my true self potential unless I stay sober.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that too. And that,
Yeah.
like I said, it wasn't even, I didn't plan on quitting drinking. I stopped drinking for 1 year. I committed to do it because I wanted to stop smoking cigarettes.
There you go.
But then, and I thought, like, for myself, I was like, I can't wait till that 1 year's over. I'm going to go get drunk. You know, like, but then I got there and I was like,
Yeah.
no. Like, I in that year, I became the person that I wanted to after I had a few drinks.
Yeah.
I was more outgoing. And you know what? It's like, I go back and it's like I'm feeling like a kid again.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the past 20 years was like going through the trenches of the outside world, and I feel like a kid again, where it's like I'm excited. I wake up with excitement. I'm doing things that I want to do. I don't really care about what other people think. That's all stuff that's programmed into us. Like, we start going to school, and you know, like you're like 8 years old. The more, you know, you get to about 16, and then you're in high school. And for like me, high school was
Well,
okay.
they call it
but
high
was-
school for a reason.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, you know, to kind of wrap it up there, because I
Yeah.
know that like,
For sure. So yeah, we're running long on time, which is awesome. So one of the ways I like to close the show
Yeah.
is I like for us to ask each other just one last question.
Okay.
And so the way I ask it is, if there was one question that, you know, you wanted to ask me, or you wanted me to ask you, you know, there's a final question on this. If there was one question, what would it be?
mine might seem kind of silly, but
Sure.
I'm gonna ask you anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. You first.
If you could have a chance to be one animal for a day, what would it be and why?
First thing that comes to mind, because like I always go right to the heart. Where like in those Tony Robbins events, sometimes when like you're asked those questions, you gotta like, you put your hand over your heart, you take a big breath, and then you start talking. And
Yeah.
for me, it would be like a bald eagle.
Nice.
That's like the first thing that comes to mind, is because of, there's something about flight and being able to see the horizon that really resonates with my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's because I'm really connected to the fact that I believe that the future that I have is a very bright one, only
Yeah.
because I'm making it a very bright one.
Yeah.
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 No, very cool answer.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing. So
Cool.
I actually saw my first bald eagle last year in the wild.
They're huge.
Yeah, they are. They're like,
Like the claws, man.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
yeah.
and just amazing, because it's like where I live by the escarpment, and like to see it in the wild. I actually saw one the day I was going to the airport after the just show up thing, I saw a bald eagle that day too, and I was like, man, there's some spirituality behind
Yeah.
this day, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
they're
yeah.
freaking cool, man.
Yeah.
It's the wingspans.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
they
beautiful.
they just have this look of such like intelligence, you know? Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
well, they're like a eagles or like a bird of prey's eyes. Like it's, you know, much like the camera lenses, like its ability just to, I think even zoom in, but like clearly see things.
Yeah, from like 2 kilometers
They're
up. Or
just
something.
absolutely remarkable.
And you know what I found? Because when I got home that day, I was like, I have to Google spiritual significance of bald eagles. And
Sure.
like, you know, I'm into that, right? Like, so like we didn't touch base too much on that. Maybe next time. But
maybe next time.
apparently, so what I didn't know this about eagles is that they actually spend more time on the ground than they do flying.
Isn't
Because
that
they're such
fascinating?
adept hunters, and it takes a lot of energy to fly up to those heights.
Sure.
But I thought like birds, they're just
Yeah.
flying around all day, but they actually spend more time on the ground than
Wow.
they do up in the air. And so it's like, and I've realized that now that I'm starting to get my pilot's license, I've had to become more grounded so that the times I go do fly, because I'm actually scared of flying, but that's why I'm going to do it, you know?
Cool, man.
Yeah. So what's the question that you had?
Yeah, so if there was one part, Rob, about the future for yourself that you feel very, very excited about, what would it be? Because I'm very curious.
Well, as you know, we've been working on video stuff.
Yes.
And I wrote a script when the pandemic hit, and I'm not sharing it with anybody.
Sure.
But my goal is, if it doesn't matter if it takes me 2 years or 20 years,
I like that.
is to produce. I'd really like to make it into maybe like a, what would you call it? Like a series.
Sure.
But if not, I'd probably like to make it into at least a full-length feature film. So my goal for my future is to produce a blockbuster full-length feature film.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is an amazing life endeavor and pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I hope to be a part of it.
Oh, you're going to be. You already are,
Absolutely.
because this is part of the process, right?
This is part of the process. We got enough gear to maybe kick off the what do you call it? The pilot?
The pilot episode.
The pilot episode.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And well, you know what? A couple weeks ago, I think maybe the last time I was here, you said something, and I kind of like said something, and you were like, "That's a really good point." And you said, you know, like, you said something about making it or being a success, and I said, Chris, you already are a success.
That was I remember that moment. Thanks.
Yeah,
man.
you can't be like you can only be something in the moment. You can only be successful now.
Yeah.
You know, and that translates to in the future it will take care of itself. But you already are successful. Look what you've built here.
Oh,
Look
thanks,
at
man.
yeah, like so.
I'm blessed to have you as a friend, man. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too,
Rob,
buddy.
thanks for being on my show, dude. Blessed
Yeah.
to have you as a friend, man, and blessed to share all the great stuff that we talked about with our audience. And looking forward to the next thing is you're going to be interviewing me sometime soon.
Yeah, yeah.
On the show, we're going to be switching seats.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, thank you for having me on. I love
Yes,
you, buddy.
I
And
love you too, brother.
It's been a pleasure, you know, being on this journey and continuing it. And
Absolutely.
I'm excited to just see where this all goes, man.
Yeah. Every day's turning out to be an adventure, man. It's been great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Till
All
next
right.
time.
Yep. Peace out, everybody.
Cool, man.